Well, hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Texas Titans podcast. I'm so glad you're with me because I have an incredible story to bring you today. This is the story of Lance McWhorter, who literally went from one of the most challenging childhoods that you can possibly imagine, almost near homelessness, couch surfing, trying to find a home, setting out on his own at a very, very young age, and then going to the United States military, attempting to become a United States Navy SEAL, becoming a fireman, doing some time in Iraq as a contractor, just kind of just wandering, trying to figure out what life's all about, and throughout this entire long, winding road that's just marked with challenges and overcoming, and both triumph, defeat, and everything in between. That long, winding road brought him to where he already had some roots here in East Texas, and I am so glad that that's where this road has at least landed for this point in Lance's life's journey. And so I think you're going to really enjoy this story. I got to tell you, Culture ETX, which is Lance's restaurant in downtown Tyler, has quickly become one of my favorite stops. As you'll hear in the podcast, I say Wagyu probably 15 times because that is my favorite type of steak. I like a Wagyu New York strip. And for all of you foodies out there, like Mark Baldwin and others who may be listening to the Texas Titan podcast, I'm probably pronouncing Wagyu wrong, or Trent Brookshire, or all of you uppity people who know the proper pronunciations. But hey, I'm from East Texas. I was educated in the Sulphur Springs Independent School District, and we didn't talk much about Wagyu in SS. So there. We talked about dairy cows primarily. So anyway, it's a phenomenal restaurant. I highly encourage any of you who are in East Texas or anywhere, even though those of you in the Metroplex, it's worth the trip to Tyler to check out Lance's restaurant. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you need to make a reservation because it is a small, intimate dining room. The kitchen is literally in the dining room, so you get to watch David Blackwell, the sous chef, and Lance work their magic right there. You will watch your meal be prepared. It is so awesome. So anyway, here's a little bit about Chef Lance. Lance was formerly the executive chef of 2 restaurants in the Hill Country before opening the much-loved and celebrated McGarity Saloon in the East Texas destination town of Jefferson. After McGarity's, he and his accomplished professional barbecue pitmaster wife, Bailey — that's right, you heard me, his wife is a pitmaster, I think that is pretty freaking cool — decided to move west to try and further hone his skills by working under the best chefs he could find to learn from before planning a return to East Texas. Lance made a great impact since arriving in the Dallas food scene in 2017, working as the executive sous chef at Sear Steak and Spirits in the Hilton Anito, followed by an incredible experiences learning as a chef de partie under Matt McAllister at the legendary FT33 Dallas, and under David Ugur and Anthony Bombachi as a chef de partie at Manchellaio. There you go. That's how you pronounce it. That is butcher in Italian. I just learned that through this podcast. Manchellaio. So Dallas's best new restaurant in 2018. As a 6th-generation Texan, a man after my own heart. As a 6th-generation Texan, his cuisine is firmly based on his East Texas roots, but his tastes for food and wine are truly worldly. Throughout his military and professional careers, he has spent time in almost 40 different countries, soaking in the food, drink, and cultures abroad, and now turns those exposures towards his own style of cuisine: East Texas comfort food, Cajun, Middle Eastern, Asian, Mediterranean, Latin American, and wherever he and Bailey travel to next. Folks, I am a huge fan of Culture ETX, and just like the name of the restaurant suggests, Lance has added some culture to our beloved East Texas. So I highly encourage you to, one, listen to this podcast, listen to a great story of an entrepreneur and an artist and just a human being that has set out to pursue a dream and is currently executing on point. I love this interview. And then next, go to Culture ETX. And if this is the first you've heard of Culture, please ask to meet Lance. He's a very personable guy. You'll want to know him. Same with David Blackwell. Check him out. My recommendations are the Wagyu. You'll hear some of this on the podcast. Also, I'm telling you, David's greens or his collard greens are just out of this world. I'm telling you, I love collard greens, but David's take it to a whole new level. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me on this episode of the Texas Titan Podcast. Enjoy the story of Lance McWhorter that I unfold in this visit with him. And when you get a chance, go to Culture ETX. We'd love to have you down here in God's country and have a good meal at Lance's place. Thanks, folks. Hey, folks, I just wanted to remind you that my new book, Push Play, Taking Your Life Off Pause, the revised and updated edition that includes almost a decade more of wisdom, humility, and stories, is now available at Amazon.com. And I would be grateful if you'd pick up a copy. It documents my escape from corporate America at the age of 28 to where I acquired my first company, and then also explains to you how I and encourages others to focus on the life you want to live first. It's not about a job. It's not about trying to grab money. It's not about material things. It's about a life. And, you know, the book was inspired by something that a very dear friend of mine once said, that as he watched his father withering away with cancer, he came to my office and he said, you know, my dad is alive, but he is no longer living. That one phrase really had a profound impact on me. And Push Play, Taking Your Life Off Pause, is all about that. It's about living. It's about curating a life of living, not just being alive. It's about soaking every single drop that there is to offer out of this life. I think you'll enjoy it. It's an easy read because, after all, I wrote it and I do not use big words. So pick up a copy of Push Play, Taking Your Life Off Pause. If you do go buy it, please do me a favor. Go to Amazon and leave a review. I would sure be grateful. Thanks so much. All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Texas Titans Podcast. Now, I'm going to try to watch my monitor here, Lance, because my producer jumped on me and said I was coming in too hot on the last couple. So, folks, if I'm too loud, I'm sorry. I'm here with Lance McWhorter,
Hi, everybody.
the head chef, the owner of Culture in East Texas, Culture East Texas, Culture ETX.
Culture ETX.
That's right. And let me tell you something. We were just talking about this, man. First of all, it has quickly become one of mine and Jim Lynn's favorite stops. I've had the Wagyu twice, and folks, if you've never had a Wagyu steak prepared properly at that, I've got to tell you, this is the place. And so that to me, that speaks to the name. You have added some culture to downtown Tyler. And Lance, thank you so much for coming on the Texas Titans Podcast, brother.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I've wanted to do this ever since I met you because, one, you have a very cool story that I want to dig into about how I want to know about your background. You go and you join the military, and that has a profound impact on your life, as one would expect. But to go from, combat warrior to now a kitchen warrior, and the way you bridge those, I think, is really cool. So, first of all, let's just start, man. Where does the story of Lance McWhorter really get started? Go.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, and I always get it from people when they hear it. They go like, "You've lived 4 or 5 lives, in 47 years, But it just started. I don't know, just average house, average family, and something went kind of awry when I was a kid, and I kind of found myself bouncing around the age 13, 12 and a half, something like that, house hopping and kind of living homeless a little bit, then kind of reuniting with some old family, and just kind of really weird, all over the place, almost homeless, but almost not, just kind of in the youth system, in the, the youth services system, the youth corrections system, even, living as a kid like that, you get into some trouble and go awry and make some bad decisions. And but I always had good friends, it's like in friends' families that always really helped, and they had these really great family units where they would cook and eat and have fun, and they always kind of managed to find an extra plate for me or a couch to sleep on or something. But I started working very early on, in the 80s, before they really cracked down on anything, where you could go to Wendy's and get a job as a 14-year-old, and So I kind of started working in restaurants back then just because one, they'd hire me, two, you get money, and three, you'd always have food, you know. So it
Right.
was like kind of this act of necessity, you know, and
Yeah.
it was very convenient for a troubled kid to work in restaurants. And the people that worked at restaurants were, super crazy and super cool, and so you always had access to whatever you wanted to drink or you wanted to party, you wanted to have fun. Those are the crowd to hang around. I worked in restaurants for a few years as a kid, and then life really wasn't going well, and it was kind of like I hit this moment where it really seemed like I was either going to wind up dead or in jail or who knows. My friend's dad had talked to me a lot about the military, and he was a Vietnam era vet, and I kind of took to the idea, and all my family, a lot of them I wasn't close with, but we had a huge history of being in the military. We went back generations, and so 17 years old, I tracked down my mom and tracked down my stepdad and had them sign off on the papers, and I joined up. So I went in the Army at the age of 17. Was in the Army for a few years. Wasn't a cook. Everybody always asks, "Oh, how'd you like cooking in the military?" I was never a cook. It was like combat communications. It's a job that doesn't even exist anymore. But I wound up working in an artillery unit where I was
Right.
an artillery fort observer. Then I wound up in a combat engineer unit. I was basically working as a combat engineer. Kind of looking for more opportunities. Wanted to do something crazy. I had it in my head that I wanted to become a SEAL. And so I switched services and went into the Navy. Never made it to or got the opportunity to go to Buds, but managed to do some cool stuff. Got on the vessel boarding teams. I was a bosun mate, small boat driver, master helmsman, where I got to drive the ship. Worked on the flight deck. It was a small ship, a guided missile frigate, so you had 50 different hats. I was a landing signalman on the flight deck, so I would guide the helicopters as they were coming in. It was pretty cool. But yeah, did that for a few years. Got out, became a fireman because it's kind of like. Everybody was like, well, what are you going to do after the military? I don't know. I went to the job services guys. They're like, well, what'd you do in the military? And I told them, they're like, you can either be a cop or a fireman. And I was like, well, nobody's ever happy to see the cops come. Everybody's always happy to see firefighters.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going to be a firefighter,
Right.
which is a great job. Probably my favorite job I've ever had in my life, to be honest with you. And it's also where I really rediscovered and found my love for cooking again. We cook our own meals in the fire station. We eat as a family. You always have either a battalion chief or somebody stopping by to eat with you. And as a new firefighter, I was roving around. I didn't have a permanent station, so I found out that people were actually requesting me to be at their station because they found out that I could cook really good. And I'd never cooked anything really gourmet or anything at that point. I was just kind of kid that liked cooking.
Yeah.
So got into that, really enjoyed it. I was in about 5 years and I busted my back up pretty bad, on a house fire, and wound up, I was forced to retire, and I was, 30 years old, and looking at, I was down pretty hard. I was looking at, they were talking about spinal fusion and all sorts of stuff like that. And I just was like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And, wound up kind of working hard, rehabbing, getting back into good physical shape, and healed up pretty well. I've still got bad days where the back doesn't want to work, but, got a good retirement and managed to live and kind of goofed around for a few years. I wound up, playing guitar in some local bands and then playing in some regional bands, and then got picked up by a couple of bands out in LA and had a couple of indie record deals and got to tour around the country and played in the Jägermeister music festivals. And it was a lot of fun, but it, just didn't really dig it. It was kind of like that. I don't want to say that scene didn't jibe well with me. And I think that was just more me being a military guy than anything negative about that scene. It's just I was used to hanging around more structured kind of environment than that, and I come to find out that I really liked that environment. So I came back to Texas and wound up doing security contracting, which I met a really cool guy, became a great mentor to me, and started flying, UAVs and doing this work kind of down along the border areas and surveillance stuff and writing intel reports and doing all sorts of cool stuff like that. So it's kind of getting me back into that military mindset.
Right.
And then after that, they were really looking hard for people with good backgrounds to go over to Iraq and be security contractors. So I wound up being a security contractor for the Department of Defense in southern Iraq, and then came back, went to school, and wound up doing diplomatic security as a contractor for the State Department. And then eventually wound up on low-profile diplomatic security teams out of Baghdad, which was, super exciting, super fun, working with the best of the best guys, and just really dug it. And then I don't know what happened, but one day I just woke up and I'm like, I'm done. I want to go cook.
That's amazing.
I was like, I think I was 39 years old.
Wow.
And I was just like, I want to go cook for a living. I'm going to be a chef.
Yeah.
It just all of a sudden hit me that that's what I was supposed to do. I was making a ton of money.
Yeah.
A ton of money, like well into the 6-figure range.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm going to give all this up and go make nothing.
Yeah.
Like $35,000 a year to struggle and learn.
But following a passion, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
and I never regretted it a bit. It's like my credit score probably regrets it, but it is. I don't know, SAS guys, fortune favors the bold. So it's like, do it. It's like if you find something that you're really passionate about, why wouldn't you? Everybody, I think, holds themselves up by just this idea of, well, I'm supposed to have a house. I'm supposed to have, this. I'm supposed to have a brand new truck. And I had all those things, and I just walked away from all of it. And
stuff goes away, brother. Experiences last forever,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and so, here I am 6 years later. I've worked for some of the best chefs in the game. Yeah. I've learned so much. I've ran a bunch of restaurants, and now I own my own, and it's doing pretty damn well. Yeah. So it's exciting. It's been a ride, but it's not about to stop yet. But I'm still a 47-year-old kid, I think, so it's like I'm just in awe every day when I get to come to work and I get to talk to people when they come in and eat, and it's exciting,
Man, I love that. Okay, that was awesome on so many levels. Just you taking us through that, because you do have an artist bent about you, which is interesting that you end up in the military where and I was going to ask you the question, but you answered it. I was like, okay, given the fact that you were pretty much on your own at a very young age and having to survive, you're couch surfing, you end up working out of a pretty strategic way for survival, right? And then you go to the military. So you had a lot of freedom in that, in that you're calling your own shots at a very young age. But as we go back, one of the things that I kept hearing through the story as it related to what you're doing now, and the listeners, they can't see it, and if you're any listeners within anywhere near Tyler, Texas, I cannot encourage you enough to come to Culture in downtown Tyler, because literally this is like your dining room, and that's what you feel like when you're here.
Yeah.
It's not rushed. When you come here, it's not rushed. It's because, and you're about to get a good quality, top-notch gourmet meal. It is just phenomenal. And so... And
you get to watch us make it. The kitchen's right in the dining room.
Exactly. It's right here. You watch Lance, who I'm talking to. Literally, he's back there. He's behind the counter, and he's touching tables, but he's cooking most of the time. But the thing that I heard was, it wasn't just like the technical aspect of cooking, which I want to talk about, because that's, I know, working with your hands and the fire. We talked about that a little bit offline, but it was kind of the experience. That's what you brought up several times throughout that whenever you were in those near homeless states of your life as a young man, it was the experience of sitting down to a meal. And talk to me about how that has played into what you're doing now, what that aspect, and because it's such a cultural thing, and that's why I think food is so important for different cultures, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's where the name comes from. That's where Culture ETX comes from. Is that I've had people ask me, well, what culture? It's like, it doesn't seem like East Texas culture, you know, and I'm like, it's not necessarily East Texas culture. It kind of is, you know. It comes from, I remember my first cooking lesson ever was at my great-grandmother's house in Athens, Texas, with my grandmother and my mom there. And remember standing up on a bucket and with a wooden spoon stirring in a pan, and old rusty Folgers coffee can full of bacon grease that she just saved, and
Right.
that's what she cooked with every day, and it was just literally sat on the counter, and
Yeah.
it was just very it was the good memories of my childhood
Yeah.
were around food, were
Yeah.
around my grandmother, my great grandmother, even the best memories that I have with my mom, and I don't have a lot of those, but
Yeah.
even the best memories of that were cooking, kitchen related, like her, when microwaves were fairly new, her blowing up a microwave with a spaghetti squash. It was hilarious,
Right.
but it was food,
Right.
it's but I mean, it is culture. Food's culture. All the countries I've been to like 40 different countries, and the thing that I experienced the most in every single one of them was food. And I would always try and go to the places where they didn't speak English,
Yeah.
because that's where it even becomes more of a common language. Is just throw the language barrier in there and go eat,
Yeah.
and then they're going to feed you what they want to feed you.
Absolutely.
And it just really broadens everything, and it really just gets you, I don't know, excited about eating.
Yeah.
It's like, and one thing, my family's been in East Texas for, I don't know, probably like yours, 150 years or more, and in Texas since it was Mexico,
Yeah.
and so we grew up eating that food, and a lot of it is very simple, and a lot of it is very, I don't want to say plain, but kinda.
Yeah.
A lot of palates in East Texas. They're not. It's not that they're basic, but they're not very adventurous
Right.
anymore. So that was kind of my whole point of this, was I wanted to take not ETX culture, but culture, and bring it to ETX. Not to replace it, but to kind of more expand on it.
Yeah.
And just kind of go, hey, look, we can cook. Like, one of my most popular dishes is Spanish octopus with black-eyed peas.
Yeah.
And this black-eyed peas, like my mama made,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's mind-bending,
Yeah.
It blows people's mind. They get it, and it's that rooted in Southern East Texas cuisine, but then we're throwing Spain in there. We're throwing a little dash of Africa in there, the Middle East, and I think it just gets people excited about eating. When I think what you saw is, when I talk about food, I get excited. It makes me happy,
Yeah.
It's my life,
Yeah.
and I love it. It's my wife's life,
Yeah.
It's our life,
Yeah.
and now we have this restaurant that she doesn't get to spend a ton of time with me here because she's got her own to run, but it's our story, kind of in four walls and a kitchen and a dining room, and it's a blast, and I want people to have fun, and I want them to relax, and there's plenty of places that, I mean, like you said, we're talking about the liveliness of the dining room. It's exciting. You're
Yeah.
right in the kitchen. You see everything happening. You see us plating everything up.
Yeah.
You see us when we make mistakes. You heard a big pile of pans crash a little bit ago. It's like, it happens. It happens when the dining room's packed on a Saturday night and a stack of pans falls and sauce flies over everything. And,
Right.
me and my sous chef David are covered in red Gombas shrimp sauce,
Right.
I mean, it happens. So you get to see it, and I think that it invites people into the experience of being in the kitchen,
Right.
being a part of the restaurant, not just a guest at it. And I think that we get to do like this really cool gourmet food, like some of it's even tweezer food, like you
Yep.
see in the big cities, but there's no pretension to it. It's,
Absolutely.
I found that a lot of people want that or expect that just because my name says culture.
Yeah.
They expect that white tablecloth and
Yeah.
tuxedoed maitre d' or whatever, and I'm like,
Right.
sorry, you're not going to get that. You come here at 9 o'clock at night, you're going to get Wu-Tang Clan and
Yeah.
like rowdy people having fun while they're eating.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be. Fun. It should be an experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be the experience you expect.
Yeah.
It should be different. And one of the best compliments I've ever gotten is, oh my gosh, we don't even feel like we're in Tyler right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I get that one a lot. And
Yeah.
but I think that the food keeps it grounded in Tyler.
It does.
But
it's like one of my favorite dishes that I had for the first time, or for favorite sides, was the collard greens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, collard greens, but man, I mean, they are just phenomenal, and everything. And yes, I am a Wagyu guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like a good steak, and I like that extra marble in my strip,
Mm-hmm.
which you're going to get. Also, the fact that being a fifth generation East Texan, anybody that supports this region of the state is has a place in my heart. And as I look up on the board, I see all farms and ranches that are local, that they are, so it's literally a farm to table experience. And man, you crush it. I mean,
Thank you.
it is you feel like you're getting a great quality experience in a casual atmosphere. Jim and I, we're in New York a lot, and so food is like experiencing food together. That's kind of our thing. We're the same way. We don't care about the stuff. We want experiences, and you've brought that here. And one of the things that I want to touch on now, because one of the things I try to do, Lance, with this podcast, and why I talk to so many entrepreneurs, and you're kind of in that sweet spot of exactly who I want to visit with on the Texas Titan podcast, because this whole podcast exists because I'm trying to practice what I preach. This was a passion project. I love learning from other entrepreneurs. I love talking and hearing stories. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to have a reason to go sit down and hear the Lance McWhorter story, right? And bring it to other people. I also want to help other people crush whatever it is that they have in life. And you touched on something that I literally just said last week when I interviewed Rick Campbell, who's on this week, is, this is a guy that was making millions, and he'll tell you in the podcast, but he was miserable. And he's like, and so he got out. He's like, now he had a big windfall to go with it, but he's like, that didn't matter. The money wasn't as important as just doing what he was passionate about. And he wasn't passionate anymore. He hated it. And Abby, my youngest daughter, who you met, that's at Boulder, I have told her and her sister Rylan the same thing that you just said. I don't care if it's a $40K a year gig. You will live a $40K a year lifestyle if you're really passionate about that thing you're doing, right? And this is where I think it's cool for your story, because you mentioned it when I first met you. This has not only just been a passion project for you, but it's been like a therapeutic deal.
Oh, yeah.
So talk a little bit about how cooking and being a chef and now having your own place it's kind of been like a saving grace for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's definitely no secret that a lot of us come back from Iraq or Afghanistan, or wherever we've served, or I always tell people I have more ghosts and bad memories from firefighting than anywhere else. And a lot of people overlook that. They don't realize that guys in the fire department are day to day going and dealing with some of the most horrible things that you could even imagine, beyond what you could imagine. Tons of ghosts from the fire department, and that was compounded by, going to Iraq and being hyper stressful environments. And, so by the time I gave that up, it was like, I kind of had a rough go of it. It's when I first came home from Iraq, this is the middle of 2013. I went right into it. I took a couple of months just to kind of, mess around, whatever. I think it was kayak fishing and riding my Harley a little bit and just kind of decompressing and looking kind of where I wanted to work, if I wanted to open my own restaurant. Because I was going full blown stupid. It's like, I just wanted to come back and open my own restaurant.
Right.
And that would have been I would have probably never cooked again in my whole life, you know, but I was kind of looking around for where I wanted to go. And I wound up, I'd met a lady that, had just opened a restaurant, and it was a space that I was kind of looking at. And we ran into each other a month or so later, and she goes, "Hey, did you ever find that property that you were looking for to open your restaurant?" And I'm like, "No, I really didn't." She goes, "Well, I was really impressed by you and your drive and your knowledge and everything." She goes, "I'm kind of having a rough go of it. Why don't you come and run my restaurant for me, run the kitchen?" And I was like, okay. So it's kind of like I tripped right into like a head chef job, my first restaurant out of the gate,
Wow.
And I think that was, I think it was my old culinary school. They asked me if my military experience was a blessing for my culinary experience or for my culinary career. And I was like, it was a blessing and a curse. It's like, I got that job because of my leadership and my organizational abilities and things that I learned in the military, things that I learned in public service, not on my cooking chops, So I had to learn to become the best cook in the room. I had the leadership down, but the best cook in the room, I had to learn the business real fast, the P&Ls, how to order, the inventory, all that. So I did that for about, 6 months or so with that place, and kind of got burned out on it really fast. And I think it's because I didn't take that initial artistic approach to cooking first. I was shoved into the business aspect of it. So didn't really dig it. So I kind of was like, maybe that's not for me, and wound up doing some other stuff. And man, I really went off a cliff, like bad. It's I needed that artistic outlet, that creative outlet, that attention to detail, something. But I mean, I just wound up just getting in my head and getting into bottle and getting into just making not great life decisions, and nothing super profoundly bad, but just not taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Not taking care of my mental health, and I got to the point to where one night I just almost blew my brains out.
Wow.
I was just like, I'd had it, and I didn't realize that wasn't really me. That was like all the stuff compounding from Iraq and firefighting and all that, and I wasn't taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And I was really just, I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I had a really good friend, her name's Sydney Cook. Hi, Sydney. And she's an incredible chef down in the Hill Country, and I knew her from when I was at my other restaurant. We were neighbors. Her restaurant was just a couple doors down from mine, and it was where I would always go and kind of chill out and decompress, have a glass of wine. She was taking over a new restaurant, and she came and found me one day, and I mean, I had like a beard halfway down my chest and was like just this not a happy person, but I was trying. And she goes, "You belong in the kitchen. You need to be in the kitchen. This is what is good for you. This is where you're supposed to be." She goes, "You're coming to work for me. You're going to be my chef de cuisine. You're going to be number 2 in my kitchen. You're going to come in and you're going to learn and you're going to cook, and we're going to make a go of this."
Right.
And it saved my life. Wow. It's that was the turning point of it all.
Wow.
It's and I mean, that restaurant was rough. It's like she was the chef, she wasn't the owner, and the owners were absolute miserable people to be around. And quickly both of us realized that we didn't want anything to do with them. But that was it. It was in my head. I was like, okay, you're right. This is it. It was like I told you. I finally realized that it was the fire, the knives, the craziness, the orchestrated chaos, the madness of it. It was like, that's what made it better. Is I had that again. It's like all through my life, it's been craziness. Whether as a kid, being in a youth correctional system as a skinny white kid, then Army, then Navy, then firefighting, then contracting. It's like I always had some degree of craziness, and there's a lot of craziness in the kitchen. But it's more of a positive craziness. It's if you fail the mission, somebody doesn't get hurt. Well, not often, but right. I mean, I've seen some pretty bad cuts, nicks, burns. Had a bunch myself, but I don't know. It's a very good environment for us, and that's why one of the big things that I've tried to do is really talk a lot of other veterans into looking at this industry as a good go-to when you come home. It's whether you want to cook, whether you want to manage, whether you want to go to get your sommelier certificates, whether you want to get in the bar, whatever. It's a really good, fun environment for us.
Yeah,
it's not the best money in the world, but I think if you work your way up to it and you work to where you're getting into some really good restaurants or opening your own, from what I hear, eventually, like, you actually get a paycheck like one of these days. I don't know. I haven't had one in like 4 months, since we opened, but we're getting there. All my guys and gals got paychecks. The lights are still on. Food vendors aren't chasing me down, so we're paying the bills. But it's a struggle, and if you don't get in there and love it, then you're not going to like it. But I think that's that pressure, that's that drive, that's that.
Yep.
And one of these days, it's like one of the biggest things that I ever learned to do in my life is to just manifest the win. It's like there's so many times that I've been knocked down on my ass and just gone, just gonna lay here. And there was, I don't know, it was Hunter S. Thompson or one of those that said, don't ever let anybody pick you up. You do it yourself. But it's just like you just keep doing it. You keep picking yourself up, and then eventually something great's going to happen. And that's what I visualize with this restaurant every single day. Even when the bank gets tight, or it's like I get worried. I just go, dude, you can't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just visualize the win. Go.
Absolutely.
Take care of your people. Make decisions based on their welfare, not yours.
Yeah.
And just, I just try and keep my people as happy as I can.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard because you're frustrated and you're tired and you're on edge, and you're a week away from payday and a 3 payday month, and you're like, oh, dude,
Yeah. No. Hey, and that's the thing, and that's one of the things that you just honed in on something that I say this nearly every podcast, especially when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, is that there's a lot of people out there, they think they want to be an entrepreneur. They think they do because right now, for instance, if you were to walk into Culture on a Friday night, it looks like you're crushing it. They don't see behind the scenes of how hard it is to make all this go for them to enjoy that incredible meal.
Yeah.
And I remember, like for me, I used to sit there in my QuickBooks and the numbers would be in red for the first, probably year and a half. They were just because you're holding any check that was ever cut with my name on the front of it was probably sitting in a drawer somewhere, not getting cashed. All the other checks have to get cashed first. I had a guest on this podcast that talked about one time he's on an overseas trip, same thing you just talked about. It was, do I pay the IRS or do I pay my employees? He paid his employees. The IRS garnishes his wife's full paycheck, one pay period, and she didn't know that they were in trouble because he was trying to hide that from her. Rick Campbell, he just told the story. He's, Porticool at one point's $8.9 million in debt. He has no idea how he's going to keep the thing going. He had to make some drastic decisions to keep it afloat. I mean, it's just story after story. But again, if you believe in what you're doing, and it's not about the money, but it's about, and that's like, I wrote a book, Push Play, Taking Your Life Off Pause, because that's exactly what I did. I mean, I was in corporate America, and if I just kept my head down and didn't screw up too bad, I would have been, making the, whatever, and living
cozy retirement,
comfortable, cozy lifestyle. And I was the same way, man. It's like, for me, it wasn't so much about the money. It was about curating a life. It was about being there for my daughters, calling my shots, building something that, whether I'm going to sell it one day or whatever, it's my thing that I'm building. And so that's what that book is about, is telling people, hey, you know what? Whatever rules society has created, Steve Jobs said it best. He said, all the rules and all the things that you see, the things that we call society and life, were created by people no smarter than you, right?
Yeah.
And so, his whole deal was, go kick a dent in the universe. And it's so weird how we fall into this trap of thinking, oh, I have to do this just because that's what you do.
Right.
And so that's what I love about your story. It's not just a story of, if you find what you're truly passionate about and what you truly love, it's not just about, oh, well, if you do what you love, you'll make a ton of money. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. No, if you do what you love, it can literally save your life because you're plugged in. I always compare it to I tell people when I'm talking about what it means to do what you're called to do, is like taking sticking something into a socket and having the electricity flow. Now you have found where you're supposed to be. And so it sounds like that's your story.
And it's, well, and I don't necessarily think this is the last chapter of it either. You know, it's like I keep saying, my sous chef David. It's his collard greens, by the way. Those collards are ridiculous.
They're so good.
Like I make great collard greens. He's like, "Oh, chef, no, it's cool. I got a really good recipe," and I'm like, "Roll with it, man." And we tried it, and I was like, "Dude, those are the best collard greens I've ever had in my life. They're amazing." And like my wife probably wanted to divorce me from that because like hers were my number one favorite ever. And it's like, sorry, babe, David's are really, really good.
David, we're bragging about.
Yeah, we're bragging about.
We're literally,
collard greens are amazing.
In case you can't tell, listeners,
everything he comes up with.
We're sitting in the middle of culture right now in the dining room, and David's behind. And also, I think I heard you tell somebody behind the counter. They asked, "What do you put in your vegetables?" And your answer was love, which I thought was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, but I don't remember where I was getting on the point with that, but it's
just doing what you love. It can save your life.
Well, I was thinking like the 10-year plan. It's like it's not necessarily going to be my last chapter. It's like David and I, we were both cooking at some of the best restaurants in Dallas. We were learning from some of the best chefs around. It's I had been was running Sear up in the Hilton Anatole for a little bit as the exec sous up there. Learned a lot about big business, learned a lot about P&L. It's a big, gorgeous steakhouse, 27th floor of the Hilton, overlooks downtown. that taught me how to deal with the bean counters, to deal with the numbers, and then it didn't teach me anything about cooking. It was like very kind of boring when it came to that. But it's a steakhouse, it's like I can throw down steaks, that, but
yes,
it's
you can.
But after that, I wound up going to FT33 with Chef Matt McAllister. The guy's genius. He's amazing, and somebody that I consider my absolutely greatest mentor ever. It was kind of my whole deal. I wanted to go to Dallas and learn, and David did the same thing. He left Tyler and went up there, and he wound up, he was the executive of Bolsa, which is just a legendary farm to table joint in Oak Cliff. Fantastic restaurant, I wound up working at another restaurant in Oak Cliff called Machalaya with another great chef, David Uger. He's fantastic, and Tony Bombaci, Anthony Bombaci is one of the greatest chefs in Dallas ever, and he used to be the chef de cuisine at Machalaya, and that guy, I loved picking his brain, and I loved everything that he had to teach. He was always wanting to teach. So when I was wanting to make my return to East Texas, I got lined up with David, and through another chef friend of mine, Graham Shockley. He's at the Beverly in Dallas. Another great chef. But I went to David, and I was just like, look, I want to open this place. He was like totally down. He's like, I've been wanting to go back home anyways. It's closer to deer hunting,
Yep.
So we got here, and that's kind of like my whole goal is one of these days, I just want to hand the keys to him and just go, here, this is yours.
Wow.
We built this together, but just send me a check,
right.
Here, this is yours, and I think that's, the next chapter, maybe I'll get to cook with my wife, that'll be awesome. But I mean, it's literally building those relationships, taking care of your people, never being scared to evolve, and because I think if you find what you love, if you just find what you love, create something that's good enough.
Yeah.
And then, because that's a common denominator in all the stories that you tell about a lot of entrepreneurs that you've worked with or spoke with in the past, is eventually they hit that where they go, it's time for me to do something else. So am I going to do culture for 5-10 years? I don't know. I'm always looking. It's like, I think that a lot of us do, that a lot of us have this mindset. We're always kind of planning our next move or our next jump. I don't know when it'll be, but I was working on opening a different restaurant when I found this one. I was working on opening something called ETX Provisions, which was going to be just kind of a high-end Texas food restaurant, because I still don't believe that anybody's ever done that, at least correctly. It's like it always winds up being Bobby Flay food. It always winds up being Southwestern or whatever. It's not Texas food. But so I was working on that when this space came available, and it was just, I already had Culture ETX on paper. I already had a business plan for it. I already had draft menus. It was like a tertiary project. It was something that I wasn't even thinking about putting together. It was just one of those, maybe 2 or 3 restaurants down the line, I'll open this one because it'll be a fun little neighborhood spot. Well, lo and behold, this spot opens up, and I'm like, that's it. That's culture. And everybody's like, oh, what happened to ETX Provisions? I'm like, it didn't. It doesn't mean it's not gonna. But this was the space. And I think that's one of the things, like maybe budding entrepreneurs, things like that, is always write it down. It's like, if you have a good idea, don't be afraid to write it down. Don't be afraid to invest some time into it. It's like, I took months, before we moved to Tyler, and was just drafting business plans and ideas and menus, and for 3 different restaurants, for ETX Provisions, for my wife's restaurant that we wanted to open for her, for this restaurant, for and I've got a couple more written down, but it's, I've got URLs saved. I've got, I've got social media pages that are already bookmarked. It's like, basically, when I've got this space, I literally just had to go in there and turn all that stuff on because I already had it. It's and that saved a huge step in realizing if it was the right move to make at all. Does the space fit the plan? That's a lot easier than finding a plan to fit a space. It's. I think it just really streamlines the process. I was able to open up in weeks, as opposed to months, because I had something that would work for this. So
and that's so smart. So James Altucher is a guy that I've really started listening to his podcast. Brilliant business guy, and he's kind of lot like you. I mean, he's done a ton of different things, everything from running a hedge fund to stand-up comedy to writer, you name it. He's just done a lot of different things. He's very bright. And he said one of his exercises that he does on a daily basis to make his brain sweat, as he says, is he has an idea book where he's constantly writing down ideas. Some are completely nuts.
Right.
Some actually get executed on. But the idea is always have ideas being generated. And I think that's exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
And I think that, just the act of dreaming leads to the belief in possibility, right?
Absolutely.
That it is if you're willing to take the time to dream, and then, like you said, man, attach a name and put it on paper and make it manifest it, right? Make it real, and then boom, here you are, and you did it, and you executed. So I think there's so much wisdom in that, Lance. Now, one of the things,
it's accidental wisdom, that's for sure, because I've never done this before in my life. I'm terrified half the time.
Right.
It's I've never owned anything.
Yeah.
It's like I've ran plenty of other people's, and I would say that to other people that are budding entrepreneurs, is be prepared to be terrified. You will scare the absolute crap out of yourself.
Yeah.
Once it gets going, especially in the hospitality industry, where it's so open to the naysayers and the Facebook people and the Yelp people and it's just like, oh my God, it's like we were open a month and I about went off a cliff just because and my wife stopped me. She was just like, dude, you can't live like this. But I mean, it's I think just the way that I came up, it's like I require this constant reassurance or this constant need for approval or to hear the positive accolades and things like that. But I quickly had to realize that it's not all positive accolades. It's like you're going to get feedback and you're not going to like it. You know? And a lot of it's going to be spot on and you should listen to it. But there's a lot of it that's not. That's kind of skewed, or it's not really accurate, or just doesn't reflect you or your restaurant or whatever you're doing.
Right.
But I mean, I would find myself waking up in the middle of the night, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and grabbing my phone, like terrified that I got, another Yelp review,
Right.
And it's like the only thing that I get negative reviews for is because people go, the music's too loud, or whatever. They were playing Wu-Tang Clan in there. They were playing Dr. Dre, whatever, and FYI, we only play that like late at nights, like 9 PM on, we play whatever we want to play, but, because it's mine, and it's
part of it,
But it's just, I think that's one of the hardest things, is being open to the criticism and not letting the criticism really dig in on a personal level, which I was doing, big time.
Hey, brother, I have to do some guidance counseling at home about that with Jimlin, because she has Hot Tots. It's hers that she built, and she gets mad whenever I don't say it's ours. But look, I married it. Hot Tots came with her, but she's like that. You let one dissatisfied customer come along and she just obsesses over it. She's built that business on service, and I think that's part of being good in any retail environment. You will never be able to automate incredible service. You will never be able to automate that personal touch in the business that you're in, man. It's people's food. It's their sustainability, right? It's huge. One of the things I want to ask you, because you touched on it with your military experience, and this is going to sound really, really layman of me, but this is true. I never truly appreciated exactly what an executive chef was until I started watching some cooking shows. I saw Gordon Ramsay, then I watched the movie Burnt and Chef, and there's another one that was the first one I wanted to mention, but it wasn't until I started watching some of these movies to realize that, man, a chef isn't just somebody that can cook really well.
No, that's a cook.
You are a manager. You are, exactly. That's a cook. Yeah. No, a chef is a line. It's a manager. It's like a drill sergeant, right?
Yeah. It's more like like a brigade commander.
Yeah.
It's like that's why Auguste Escoffier back in the early 1800s, he was a French military guy, and he set up what we come to know as the brigade system, and that's where you get your chef, your sous chef, your chef de cuisines, your chef de parties, your commis. It's set up like a military hierarchical structure, and that's why it has to function like that. Because if me as the chef, if I'm trying to ensure that Especially it's not so bad in my kitchen where I've got 3 guys that are
Right.
cooking everything. But you get it. I've run kitchens where I had 9 people on the line at a time.
Yeah.
So I can't effectively manage 9 people at once.
Right.
And make sure my guests are happy, and make sure that all my business is taken care of, that all the food's coming out correctly, everything's plated, everything's tasting right, everything's at the correct temperature. It's like I cannot do that if I'm micromanaging every single station, from garde manger where they're making salads to pastry where they're making dessert to fryer station to wherever. I can't be all those places at once. There's
Right.
no way. So it's literally just setting up that brigade or that corporate structure or whatever you're going to do in your particular business to put the right people in the right places to ensure that everything's going to get done the way you want it.
Right.
But yeah, being a chef is, and I will say, like, all the movies and TV shows are super entertaining and everything like that. But Jacques Pepin, who's a legendary French chef and television personality from back in the day, he basically came out and said that's kind of ruining the restaurant experience for everybody. The chefs included is the TV shows where they're showing the Ramses and the the people running around and shouting and yelling. Does it happen? Sure, but not like that. That's if I ever had a chef come and yell at my face like that, like I would punch him in the neck, like literally right there on the spot. And there's the vast majority of cooks that I know would be the exact same way. I'm like, dude, we all have knives, we all have pans. It's like you're not going to come and lose your mind like they do on TV. It just doesn't happen. Like you would get stomped really quick.
Yeah.
And your business would be gone. You'd be closed. It's like so that I've never seen that happen, and I've worked with some pretty hardcore chefs. It gets temperamental sometimes. But I think the military is the same way. It's like if something goes wrong, it has to be immediately corrected right then on the spot.
Yep.
And sometimes that can be very abrupt or abrasive.
Right.
Abrupt and abrasive is okay. Abusive isn't.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I had my moment of when I was running restaurants when I first started doing this was where I would really kind of lose it, and I remember like hitting a kid not a kid, he was a grown man, but I remember like hitting him in the chest with a salad, and dude's name's Joseph. I still remember him, It's like he's a great dude, and that's the moment that turned me around going, hey, that doesn't work in the real world.
Right.
It's like I felt terrible.
Yeah.
It's like and that was kind of my moment where it's like, okay, reality TV isn't real. These guys aren't military guys.
Yeah.
These guys aren't, you can only expect people to be as good as they are. Any more than that, you better be willing to spend the time that you don't have teaching them to be better. You know, and it's like and we do that. I think that's a main job as a chef, is being a teacher, a mentor, a therapist. Oh my God. You're dealing with everybody's problems. Everybody's problems are yours, because if one guy, one gal is having a bad day, it'll crater everything.
Yeah.
It's, Julia Childs, I think she was like, you can't cook good food if you're not happy, and it's like, so you got to kind of keep everybody happy. You got to try and take their pressures off. You have to know what their families are going through, what's going on in their life, and this is all on top of working, 80, 90 plus hours a week. It's a rough industry. And
it was just like we talked about David earlier. I mean, man, you got to be able to put love into it, because you're creating. You're literally. It's not like turning a ratchet or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's not turning a wrench. I mean, you're literally, and it's something people are going to put in their mouth and they're going to savor. And again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is you're literally creating an experience for them. So there is more pressure. And look, I mean, and they're not going to Wendy's that you mentioned when you were a kid. No, they're coming to this is something that they've most likely, when somebody comes to culture, they planned it not just that night, but probably earlier in the week.
Right.
And I got to tell you, it thrilled me to no end that I couldn't get in here till 8:30. That warmed
it's
my
awesome.
heart, man.
Yeah, I love it. It's fun when it does that. But we have our off nights too, where it's pretty slow. And that's what. I'll get out there. That's where I'll start hustling, and I'll get on Facebook or whatever. Hey, we got some tables. We've got walk-in Wednesdays. We've got whatever. Come on.
Right.
I think it was this last Saturday. We were booked out before you got here.
Yeah.
And we had a cancellation.
Yeah.
Or no, they had booked. It was like 10 to 12, and they wound up only being 8. So instantly we peeled the table off of there, spun it sideways to make some room. And I got on Facebook and like, hey, we got an open table. Like, come on. And like somebody called within like 30 seconds and came down 10 minutes later. You know,
That's
it's
awesome.
like, yeah, come on. You know, but you got to think about all those things all the time at the same time. Like you mentioned, the food, you know, it's putting love into it. One of the hashtags that I always use on all my Instagram and Facebook posts is friends don't let friends eat at chain restaurants, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that chain restaurants have killed the American dining experience.
Yeah.
It's because there is no craft in that. There is no love in that. There is no soul in that. There is shareholder profits. That's all that there is. It's cheap. It's processed. It's terrible quality from the meat to the vegetables to the way it's prepared.
Yeah.
It comes out of a bag. It gets heated up and it gets dumped on your plate.
Yeah.
And every night, if I have the chance to drive by one of those chain places, their parking lot's full.
Yeah.
Every night because they're cheap.
Yeah.
You know, good food ain't cheap. Cheap food ain't good. You know, it's like, but people have it in this, and I've seen it a lot more in East Texas to where people want that a lot more for less. You know, and it's just. So I think that's another big part of what I'm trying or hurdle that I'm finding here is that I have to be an educator as well. I have to teach people the difference.
I agree with
and that's why the names of the farms are up on the board above the kitchen. You know, as people are like, well, what's Chubby Dog Farm? You know, what do they have? You know, and I'm like, it's pork. Don't worry. You know, it's this amazing Chubby Dog Farm is just one of our farms. They're these amazing farmers. Used to come from a very professional background in the Houston area, and then they one day woke up and they weren't satisfied with the food system and the quality and the healthiness of the foods that they were consuming. So they started their own farm, you know, and it's amazing. You know, it's like I use all their pork. I use it in everything. We use every bit of it. We use it everything but the oink. You know, our beef comes from, Cypress Creek, which is an hour and a half east of us, right before you hit Louisiana, and it's incredible. I know the people, I know their faces, I know their animals. It's I go to the farms, I go out there and I help them work. There's value in that. You know, and I think it was it Michael Pollan, the good food writer, was talking about that it has to be paid for somewhere.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as cheap food. There's no such thing as a cheap meal. It's like either it's going to be paid with your health from eating all this processed, injected, treated feedlot animals, which are gross. Right. That's a whole other podcast right there, is getting into the kind of weird stuff we found when we start cutting into feedlot animals, but it's either paid by your health, it's paid by the animal's health and welfare, or it's paid on an environmental basis, and I'm no super, environmental lunatic, but, I do believe that we have this responsibility to take care of the animals, to take care of the environment, to take care of the ground, the soil, without dumping all these chemicals on it. It's like everybody asks me about GMOs, the GMO food. I'm not necessarily opposed to GMO foods. It's what they were genetically modified to work against that I have a problem with, like all the pesticides and the things like that they're meant to be able to fight against. It's like, I don't want to eat that, I don't eat glycophosphate. That sounds gross. It's like, I want to know where the food came from. And here at Culture, it's like we try to find as many people that we can work with as possible to get the best ingredients that we can possibly get. And charge a fair price for them. I mean, we're still competitive. I mean, it's like, I don't have a dish, I think that's over $30 on the menu, unless you get the steak special or something like that, and even then that's reasonably priced. You go to Dallas and get a Wagyu strip or a Wagyu ribeye, you're going to pay $60 to $80 for it
all day long.
I got a 1 pound ribeye I'm about to throw on the menu from Cypress Creek. I think that one's going to go for probably $60. That's $100 steak in Dallas, but I know them. I know if I could pick up the phone and be like, which animal did this come from? And they would tell me this animal. They would probably send me a picture of them. Wow. It's like, and I fell in love with that when I was working, and I still try and do as much as I can with them being a couple hours away. But Texas Craft Wagyu beef up out of northeast of Dallas. Fantastic people. Just had their first kid. Congratulations. But Ben and Grace, they taught me a lot about how the Japanese raised cattle.
Yeah.
And I still have, and I want to frame them and hang them up in here somewhere. I just don't know where to put them. But I have every single animal that I got meat from them. As a chef, they graced me with an original nose print.
Really?
So the Japanese actually, like a fingerprint, when they harvest the animal, they roll the nose in ink and they press it onto a piece of paper, and they can actually track the animal through that. You go to Japan and you can pull out the barcode scanner on your phone and scan the package, and it'll tell you what farm it came from.
The Japanese are just so much more meticulous about everything.
Yeah.
Everything is so much more detail and just...
It's Kaizen.
Exactly.
It's that
Kaizen.
process of always trying to do better.
Exactly.
And here it's like we're always trying to do better as far as profits are concerned, but not anything else.
Production.
Yeah, more money in our pockets and just getting by on the bare minimum. This is why you go to the grocery store. As soon as... literally as soon as I started working for Matt McAllister at FT33 in Dallas, I don't think I've been in any of the center grocery store aisles.
Yeah.
Unless I'm getting beer.
Yeah.
Or unless I'm getting wine or maybe some dog treats. Something like that. I don't even go in those aisles or the freezer aisle or any of that stuff. I don't go there. It's like pick up a package, look at it. It's like you can't even go to the meat department and buy grass fed. Yeah. Now that's a thing in the past. It's like they've already figured out how to corporate get around that and labeling and everything. Pasture raised, it's like, the chicken got to walk from one building to another in an open space. And now that chicken's pasture raised. Yeah. That's literally how they do this. It's the big ag companies are writing their own laws.
Well, even organic food, I literally just heard this week. It's like as long as it's 70% organic, something like that. It can be. I mean, the numbers are pretty low as to what you can call organic, right? So you have to really dig in to figure out: am I getting organic, or am I getting something that's just met the requirements to be labeled organic?
That's it, right? Yeah, and you got to start looking at a lot of products, and a lot of stores are starting to come out with these. Third-party certification programs, which are really, really good to look at because these are independent groups that go outside of the USDA.
Just heard about that.
Yeah, because like the USDA, they're hiring or they're allowing these big ag producers to write their own books because they're considered the SMEs. Right. So they're writing everything they need to write to ensure that they're making a ton of money and pushing out the local farmers as much as they can, or nothing else, at least drive the expense up for that.
Right.
But at what cost? So that's like I said, that's like my other hat here as educators. I try and teach people, and how do you have that conversation with people when I may get to see you 5 minutes of your stay? It's like I try and post it up on social media, or and that's what's great to have a second to talk about it on this. Is people need to know that people need to start caring about where their food comes from. Maybe not as passionately as I do, but a little bit. Think about what your kids are eating. Why do we have so many fat kids? And unhealthy kids, and diseases, and all of a sudden allergies are coming out of the woodwork. Gluten sensitivities are coming out of the woodwork. It's like we didn't have. I'm 47. I'm not that old. It's like I was born in 1972. Yeah. We didn't have that when I was a kid.
Oh, no.
None of that.
Well, I tell you what, one of the things that I've started doing, Lance, is I'll do intermittent fasting regularly now. And it is amazing whenever I've fasted and I eat quality food versus if I fast and I let some just crap seep in there.
Oh, yeah.
The following meal, I feel lethargic. My taste is horrible. That's what I've really noticed is I can't even taste my coffee or my next meal. It's amazing the impact, and my nose will stop up. I mean, it does something to you biologically or whatever.
Absolutely.
That it's just not good.
Well, there's a ton of chemicals that are in that stuff that are there to make you think that you're tasting something good.
Right.
Like literally, that's the entire purpose of a lot of these additives is they trick your brain into, it's like the Matrix when the guy's eating the steak. He's like, I know it's not a steak.
Yeah.
Tastes like a steak. It's delicious. I'm going to have another one. It's like, it's literally things that are tricking your brain into tasting. It probably tastes like, I don't know, like an old sock or something. Who knows? But the way that they're treating all these meats and whatever with, pink slime and
Yeah.
and just ammonia and
Right.
everything else that they're adding onto it is gross. So they have to do stuff like that, and that's what's messing up your taste is its additives. And
Well, all right. So let's talk about an additive free. This is kind of a fun question I've got for you as we wrap up. So I want two questions actually. The first question is, if you were to make your dream meal, someone's coming in and it's no holds barred. I want you to describe that meal, and it may be these may be the same answer, by the way. I want you to describe that meal. I mean, to where you just decide to crush it. Then I want you to describe to me, if I'm coming into culture for the first time, what is something I do not walk out of here without eating? Yeah. Okay.
All right, my dream meal. I get asked that question a lot. Like what's my favorite thing to eat? What's my favorite thing to cook? What's my dream meal? And I don't know.
Yeah.
It constantly changes. It's like asking somebody what's your favorite song. There's so many. There's so many things that go in there.
What's happening in life? Yep. Get it.
I want something different. It's like I want something different yet familiar. It's I want to feel like I just ate the best meal of my life, but my grandma cooked it for me. Like that level of connection to it.
Yeah.
I've had a few meals like that. Matt McAllister, my old chef, when I was cooking at did Chefs for Farmers Festival in Dallas a couple weeks ago. Afterwards, we went and ate at his new restaurant. It's called Homewood, and it's incredible. Just the simplicity of it, but the elegance of it all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like you literally feel like your grandma just made you that dinner. It was incredible. Or you go to places like Mat Hai Ba, which are completely opposite end of the spectrum, and Chef Peja is European guy, a Serbian guy cooking Vietnamese food, and it'll blow your mind. It's like you've got a little Asian grandma and she's in the kitchen making dinner for you. It's incredible, but playful and fun and not pretentious. So yeah, that's it. My dream meal would be if Matt McAllister and Paige Christic got together and cooked for my birthday. So yeah, guys, get on that.
There's a hint.
That would be rad. What do people?
What do I
come
have
here
to eat?
that you have to eat?
I know what I'd say. I'd say you're crazy if you don't get the Wagyu steak, which you prepare yourself.
Yeah, well, steak is one of those things that I don't eat out that much. I rarely get a steak. I mean, a lot of that is because a lot of people don't know how to cook a steak.
I've become the same way, Lance. I'm a snob about two things: coffee and steak.
Yeah.
Yours is one of the very few that I will order. I'm serious. And the first night was a risk. The only reason why is because, one, I wanted to support you when I first came in here, and it was Wagyu. So I'm like, if the guy knows anything about what he's doing, the meat's so good. And I've ordered it twice the last 2 times I've been in. So I'm with you.
Cool.
I mean, it's a good steak is tricky.
It is. It's not easy, and it's so. In Dallas, there was 2 places that I'd order a steak. I would go to Town Hearth, which is a great spot for steak, also a cool room, or Knife. Chef John Tisar. He's a friend, and he's also a great chef, and makes an incredible steak. 240-day dry aged bone-in ribeye is like one of the most ridiculous things I've ever eaten in my life. Is life changing. Yeah. And I was cooking steak at the time, you know, for a living, and that set the bar for me after eating Chef John's steak, to where I was like, all right, game on. You know, it's like, what's going to set me aside from anybody else is if you ever do get a steak for me, like it's going to be amazing. Right. You know, and it's just simple. It's respecting the product. It's like, I don't feel the need to throw everything in a sous vide bath. You know, it's like, most of these steaks don't need it. Most of these places do so because it's a crutch for them, so that they don't want to invest the time into teaching their people how to cook steaks. You know, it's like, I've got a couple of cooks that work here now. They're both beasts at cooking steaks now. So it's just treating them simply, you know? So yeah, if you're in the mood for a steak, I can tell you that if you come in here and you get a steak, it's going to be a badass steak. You know, it's like, that was kind of my first goal, was being a good steak cook. But I mean, I think that if you come here, one, you're not looking for the regular dining experience, because we don't offer that. It's completely different. Not in a negative way, but just in a fun way, in a playful way. Absolutely. This room is me. It's my crew. I was when we first opened up, I'm like, I want this place to kind of be like a Generation X anthem. It's like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Judd Nelson at the end of the Breakfast Club with his fist above his head, and I wanted it to be like that. So it is in a lot of ways. But so go with that playfulness. Go get outside of your comfort zone. My wife was really concerned about me putting octopus on the menu, like really concerned about it. She was like, "It's Tyler. I don't know how many people are going to dig that, especially octopus and black-eyed peas." Like she's like, "That's super weird." And I thought it was weird, but I just thought it would work. And it was actually one of the last dishes that we tested. Me and David and my wife Bailey, it was the day before we opened, right? Yeah, it was like the day before we opened. I'm like, well, we better cook this and like just try it, you know? And like, it was spot on. I was just like, this is me on a plate. It's really good, and the plating was right on, and it's been that way ever since. And we're changing up our fall menu this week, or going to our fall menu. And I was debating. I was like, I kind of want to. Maybe we should take the octopus off. And then we were like, nah, man, people will probably kill us if we do that. They'll riot. So it's staying, and it's, I think that's probably the one that you got to get. Okay. Even if you're a little iffy on octopus, or if you've had it, at the sushi joint or whatever, and it's like that rubbery kind of boiled octopus. It's not like that at all. It's, we literally, the black-eyed peas we cook down in like French technique. We do, we start them out with mirepoix, with like actually veggies and stuff like that, and crispy ham that we make in house from Chubby Dog Pork. We do, the octopus is actually seared off in like this really luscious like belly fat that every time I process one of those Chubby Dog Farm pigs, I pull back the membrane, strip that fat out, and it's clean and it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's almost like butter, and it's natural
Pork
steak.
Belly makes everything.
And this is just the fat on the inside of the belly, not the outside.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so, a big spoonful of that goes in the pan. The octopus gets sizzled in that. Then it gets blackened up. We throw it in the big fire-breathing dragon oven. And it's really damn good dish, know? And it's kind of East Texas, the peas. It's got a little bit of that Mediterranean vibe with the octopus. And then it's got a lot of that Middle Eastern vibe because I've got the harissa in there, and a lot of the spices that are going into it are, very representative of, at one time I did the math, I'd spent like 10% of my life in the Middle East, and it's weird when you think about it as opposed to, 3, 4, 5 years. And when you think of that as a percentage of how long you've been alive. Yeah. It's kind of like, damn,
Yep.
Roll with it, use it. You've earned it at that point, So I think that's also on a plate. So I would try that one for sure. Right. And then just pretty much anything, try it, just try it. We play with our food every day, play with your food. It's like, I've got dishes on the menu where I encourage people, like, I'll give you extra napkins, pick it up, get your hands on it, like the shrimp dish, gambas, everybody loves it. They walk out of here with red sauce all over themselves. And it's like this little outside of Houston Viet Cajun inspired shrimp
I haven't
dish,
tried that yet, but I do see you serving that up a lot.
It's wicked.
I haven't tried it yet, so I need to do
really,
that.
really good. But I tell people, like, get in there with your hands, pull the heads off those things, suck them, like it's crawfish, And it's just fun. Get dirty, have fun, eat something different, enjoy the music. Yeah. Even if it's not what you expect, enjoy the food. It's like, just have a good time.
Well, Lance, brother, I've had fun.
Thank you.
This has been awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time in between. We just finished up your lunch deal, and so thank you for. I know you'd probably rather be resting, but
I'm
telling
good.
the
This
story,
is awesome.
man.
This is a lot of fun.
I'm pulling for you. I'm going to keep eating here. Jimlin and I are fans, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that every East Texan or beyond, if you come to Tyler, you got to come to Culture ETX. It's awesome. Meet Lance, meet David, who makes everything with love. And
with love.
And brother, you are, in my book, you are a Texas Titan. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, Lance. Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Texas Titans podcast. Before you go, I wanted to let you know where you can find us out there on the interwebs. You can go to show notes as well as listen to all the past episodes and look for upcoming shows at textitans.blog. Also, that has all the different formats that you can listen to the show on if you go there. So texttitans.blog. You can also go to jasonwrightnow.com. That has not only a link to the podcast, but it also has a link to my Make Your Own Rules blog that I think you'll enjoy. So please check that out. Also, it has information about my executive coaching business, speaking, and anything else like that. So jasonwrightnow.com. That's literally just my name, jasonwrightnow.com. On Twitter, I'm at jasonwrightTX. I would really appreciate a follow. I have not been a big Twitter user, so I need you guys to help me with that. So please take the time to go out to jasonwrightTX, find me, and follow me. I'm trying to get more active with it, and so if you'll engage with me, I'll try to do a better job of engaging with you. So I would appreciate that. And then on Instagram, I'd really appreciate a follow there. I'm at Jason Wright Now. Again, my name now. So please follow me on Instagram. And then on Facebook, I'm also at Jason Wright TX. So check us out there. And I'm also on LinkedIn, so look for me there. I try to use as many platforms as possible to let you know about upcoming shows, past shows, and then also just anything that I find interesting. I'm trying to push it out and get better with the social media. So please check us out there and follow us. I would be most grateful. And also, please do not forget, it means the world to me for you to go to iTunes, give us a rating. Right now, we've got that 5-star rating. I'm hoping to hold that. Please, please, please. The comments that people are writing are so very kind. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. And that's how we keep moving up in the ranks. And right now, we're crushing it with downloads. The show has really had incredible feedback thanks to you guys. So I'm grateful. Please keep that momentum going by giving us a review on iTunes. Thanks so much and have a great day. And as always, I could not be more grateful for you listening. Thanks.